Hi there, and welcome to Our Brighter Future, where we celebrate people who are changing the world. And today, I'm delighted to be with Tony Townley, who's a good friend. We've known each other for nearly 30 years. And when I first met Tony, he was selling me electricity meters, and I was working in the electricity supply industry in the United Kingdom. So it's great to have you with me today, Tony. And what I want to do just before we get into this is to explain to people that this channel is really there to support a book that I'm writing called Leading Beyond Sustainability: Six Aspirations for a Brighter Future. And for anybody that doesn't know what those aspirations are, I'm going to share my screen and explain. So hopefully you can now see that. Can you see it, Tony?
Yeah, I've got it there, Clive.
Fantastic. So very, very quickly, the book celebrates six aspirations for a brighter future, which is six things that I know people around the world want to see in our future world. I know that because I've engaged with thousands of people around the world at conferences in the last 8 years, and this is what people want. The first thing is connection, which is not only connection by the internet, but it's also connection emotionally, collaboration, compassion, love, and kindness. It's about peace, which is no war and declining levels of violence. It's about vitality, health, and well-being for all of life, not just humans, but animals, plants, and the planet that we live in. Abundance of food, water, energy, services, and wealth. And that's the aspiration that Tony and I will be discussing today. And opportunity for learning, growth, and contribution. And finally, wisdom to do the right thing, the right way, at the right time. So on that note, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to talk direct to Tony. So Tony, it's fabulous that you've been able to join me today. And I'd just like to start by going right back to the discipline of metering. Tell me, how did you get into metering? I don't think I've actually asked you this question before. And what is it that excites you about it?
Now, well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to the channel today. It's great to chat to you. And as you said, we have known each other for a long time. It's surprising how quickly 30 years goes. And it's quite surprising how things change in 30 years. I know when we first met, my hair wasn't grey and you had hair. So things really have changed in the last 30 years. And then you start to look at the technologies and sustainability. So, thanks for inviting me along today. It's great to chat with you and everybody else who's going to watch the video. How they get into metering? Probably by default, really. It wasn't something I particularly chose. I did an apprenticeship when I left school, and then this for a company called GEC, and then I wanted to move into sales. And very soon after I moved into sales, they did metering, and that was it. So I spent all my career in metering, from the old traditional metering right way up to smart metering now. So it's been a sort of fell into it as part of my apprenticeship, but really learned a lot from the experience.
So let's get into smart metering then, Tony, because I know you and I have spoken about this a few times. And smart metering, I think most people think of as a little display on your kitchen work surface that tells you where you're using energy, but it's so much more powerful than that. What is it that you see smart metering being able to offer to make our world a better place?
To be fair, smart metering has been around for a long time. It is the flavour of the last sort of 6 or 7 years, but we've had a smart type meter for many years in the commercial sector. So basically a smart meter is a device that is not dumb, that you can read, and once you got that information, you can do something with it. So for many years now, we've had half-hourly meters for the 1 megawatt and above, 100 kilowatt and above customers, and then COP 2 meters from 1 megawatt and above. So that has allowed big businesses to use the data to manage their energy use and balance the energy use on the networks out. So the next stage is moving it to the residential sector, which is where we now know where smart metering has come from. And there are lots of things. One, the biggest difficulty is that most people do not know how much they spend or use on electricity. You ask somebody how much electricity you use, and they'll say £100 a month. And that can change depending on how much the cost of energy is. So with smart metering, you can actually get an accurate idea of what you're using and when, and you can tell if you're being efficient or not. So just from a very simple, basic position, it allows people that don't understand metering to actually be able to manage their electricity. And that's just really the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because what you were saying about the bigger customers there, the fact that you can use pricing to control demand is really, really important. I mean, from the customer side, I guess they can save a lot of money by using electricity when it's cheaper. But from the distributor or the power company side, if the system isn't able to supply all the energy that is needed on the system at any one time, you can simply put the price up, make it a bit more expensive, and limit the amount of energy that's flowing through it. And I guess that in the world that we're moving into, with renewable energy and generation out in the system, like with solar and wind and so on, I guess that offers all sorts of potential for managing the distribution system going forward.
Yes, it does. And like I say, just an accurate meter reading is great as a start point. But you then look at the networks and how they can pull all this data back, and they can use that data to see where there may be hotspots on the network, where there's demand higher than others. And one of the biggest issues is, the demand for energy now is increasing and increasing. It's not getting less. The population's getting bigger. We have more devices that use energy, and to upgrade and update the network infrastructure is a massive undertaking. So if you can now use smart metering to level out the demand, level out the usage, so that we can still use the same infrastructure, then that's another really good positive side to smart metering.
I suppose a big thing that's happening in the world at the moment, as we speak, literally, is the introduction of electric vehicles and home charging and charging of fleets and everything else. And I guess when that happens, that puts a massive demand onto the system. And if that's having to come from windmills offshore, then that energy has to travel some way to get to the cars and vehicles. Whereas if it's being generated locally, or literally on our rooftops at home or in the garage for a fleet of vehicles, then again, by using smart metering, we can play games, if you don't mind me calling it that, with the way that energy is priced, and use it to manage demand and encourage local generation rather than distant generation. Does that all make sense?
That makes total sense. One step further, which I'm very interested in, as well as smart metering, is to actually look at the smart home. Yes. So you talk about PV panels, solar panels on the roof, absolutely fantastic. But they generate energy normally when the household is not at home. Yeah. And the household is not at home, his car's not at home, or her car's not at home, so you can't charge your car up for your PV panels. So we move into an electric future, whether it's vehicles, energy, heating. So the biggest issue is then how to store that. So rather than just using pricing to manage the demand, to me, it's how you can store that. And I think the technology that's coming in now on battery storage is really going to help the whole smart home. So you can have your EV charger, you can have your PV panels, you can have air heat source pumps that are energy efficient, and then you can have battery storage, so you can store energy when you're not using it during the day when you're generating it, or you can even top up off peak at night. So you're then making your home like a little energy cell.
Yeah, and when you start introducing batteries, and bearing in mind as well, exactly as you said, there are great big batteries in vehicles which
Yeah.
can play into the mix. So it's not out of the question that if you've got suddenly a big demand in a home or a commercial premises, that actually we can meet some of that demand by taking electricity when it's expensive to come in from the grid, by just importing it from the vehicle or the batteries in our garage or wherever they happen to be, and making all that work so that we're using the pricing not just for importing energy but also for exporting it out onto the
Yeah.
system. We can just make it all work. And certainly that's my vision for the future, is that artificial intelligence, which we hear a lot about these days, can effectively run the home, and it'll charge our batteries up when there's lots of energy and it's the right price to do so. And we can also import from our own storage devices, and some things in the home we've got choices, when fridges kick in and when we do our um, clothes washing and when we heat our storage radiators, and on it goes. I mean, well, how do you see it all playing out, Tony?
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's going to be so much demand. We're going to need to manage it. And I just see it playing out as smart homes. So
Yeah.
you will get artificial intelligence or smart computer programs, basically, which is artificial intelligence that will run that little micro network in your house, or maybe might run a network in the street or in the village. So you might get a local generation, small power plants, which might be with PV, wind, or heat from the ground, that just managed a small area. So rather than putting transmission lines across the country where you're losing, you ship all this electricity across the country and you lose quite a high percentage of it in the wires. So if you generate locally, you use locally, and you use it at the right time where you don't need to upgrade the network, then it becomes not just a smart home, it becomes a smart street, a smart city, and a smart town.
Yeah, and I suppose a smart country as
And
well.
absolutely, yes.
Because I mean, do you ever foresee the situation where we don't need the national grid? I mean, that's kind of taking it to the nth degree, where everything is generated locally and you balance it all out locally. But with the availability of all that wind energy off the coast of the United Kingdom, in our case, then it suggests that the economics are such that you will want to ship some energy around the country just to make the most of that.
You're going to have to do that. I mean, to meet the demand and the gigawatts that we need, that can't be done at a home level. So to nationally meet the demand, you're still going to need a national grid. You're going to need the offshore, onshore wind farms,
Yeah.
and also the multi-megawatt solar farms that are out there as well.
Yes. I suppose there's a bit of a halfway house, because if it was the extreme situation where everything was generated offshore and brought in, I've heard people talking about needing to double or triple the size of the national grid, which of course is building power lines across the countryside, which people are not that keen on. So having that there for some energy transmission, but having a lot more energy generation close to the point of use, maybe we can get away with the grid sized at the level it is. What do you think?
Yeah, it's always that optimization, but I mean that's the whole idea. With a smart meter, wherever it is on the grid or at the home, you can measure in real time and you can see what's happening and you can manage that. So yeah, that's the intention, is that we don't need to spend billions and billions on a new infrastructure and a national grid.
Fantastic. So where's all this heading, Tony? Have you got any thoughts about where we'll be 5, 10 years into the future?
Yeah, I think we'll all have smart homes. We're getting there with smart homes now. We just like Alexa around the house. Who'd have really thought that Alexa would be taking Amazon parcels in for you, telling you, when your next delivery is coming from wherever. Smart fridges that can tell you when got cameras in, it can tell you when you need to top up the food. So we're getting there. The technology's there and people are embracing that. So I do think we will be in smart homes. I think we will probably try and be more self-sufficient with your solar panels and local generation.
Fantastic. Now, a little bird tells me that you're taking an interest in smart water metering.
That was a little bird, yes. I don't know which little bird that might have been. Yeah, I've been in electricity and gas now for over 35 years, and that has been at the forefront of smart metering with the energy usage. But again, we also need to look at the wise use of water. And a country, where the amount of rain, you live in Yorkshire, Clyde, I live in Manchester, probably the wettest part in the country, and we still end up potentially with hosepipe bans in summer. So we've got issues there with the infrastructure. Again, probably needs massive development and lots of money spending on the infrastructure. But another way to help manage that is on smart metering. So the water world is now starting to follow the electricity and gas world. So I am moving over to very shortly into the water business. Sorry about that. That should have been on silent. Into the water business again, to use the experience that I've already got over the years in electricity and gas. And whilst it's a slightly different technology, it's still the same principle, how you can manage it, measure it, see where there are issues on networks, and then you can, whilst you've not got the generation issue, you've still got the leakage issue and things.
Yeah, it's interesting, but when you said you haven't got the generation issues, I was immediately taken back to my 3 water butts sitting in my garden at home and thinking, well, actually, there's a little bit of home generation going on there for water. And of course, that's the point, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, at least with water, you can store it, where with the generation of electricity, you can't. But it's absolutely right. I mean, my father, he's got 2 water butts, and he's on a water meter, and he makes sure he collects as much rain as he can, and he uses that to water his flowers.
Fantastic. Well, listen, Tony, it's fabulous talking to you. And of course, the reason we're having this conversation is that we both see this brighter future where there's sufficient energy for everybody, and the same with water, because providing we get the technology right, then there is enough energy and water and food and money and wealth to go round and for everybody to lead their best life. Have you got any final thoughts for me before I release you to the rest of your day?
No, I'd just like to thank you for inviting me onto the call. It's been great chatting with you and just talking about our different experiences. I know we're in the same industry, but again, we see it from different points of view as well. So it's been great to have the opportunity to chat with you, and also to all the viewers and listeners.
Thank you so much, Tony.
Thank you.